Imagine living in a foreign land. Far from home. Far from your roots. And wondering if anyone sees you. This is the story of Esther. A young woman who never expected to become a queen. And certainly never expected to save a nation. Long ago, the Jewish people were living in exile. In the Persian Empire. They were scattered across a vast kingdom. Ruled by a powerful king named Ahasuerus. Also known as King Xerxes. His empire stretched from India to Ethiopia. Filled with wealth, beauty, and authority. King Xerxes loved grand displays. One day, he held a royal feast. That lasted for 180 days. Imagine that. 6 months of celebration. There was food, wine, music, and endless luxury. At the end of it, he hosted another banquet, and proudly displayed his riches. During this feast, the king called for his queen, Vashti. He wanted her to appear before his guests, to display her beauty. But Queen Vashti refused. Her refusal shocked the king. In his anger, and under pressure from his advisors, he removed her as queen. And just like that, the throne beside the king became empty. The king's officials suggested a search for a new queen. Beautiful young women from across the empire were gathered into the palace. Among them was a young Jewish woman named Hadassah, also known as Esther. Esther had been raised by her cousin, Mordecai. She had lost her parents when she was young. Mordecai cared for her as his own daughter. He taught her wisdom. He taught her courage. He taught her to remain faithful to her people and to God.
Esther, do not reveal that you are Jewish. It is not safe. Trust that there is purpose in where you are.
For 12 months, Esther underwent preparation and beauty treatments. Imagine the pressure. Living among strangers. Competing for a crown she never asked for. But Esther was not loud. She was not arrogant. She was gentle, thoughtful, wise. And when her time came to stand before the king, she carried herself with grace.
This is the one. She shall be queen.
Out of all the women, he chose Esther. An orphan girl had become queen of the most powerful empire in the world. But this was only the beginning. One day, Mordecai, who often sat at the king's gate, overheard 2 palace guards plotting to assassinate the king. He quickly informed Esther, and Esther told the king, giving credit to Mordecai. The plot was stopped. The king's life was saved. The event was recorded in the royal records. It seemed like a small detail, but small details matter. Now in the palace was a high official named Haman. The king promoted him above all others. Everyone was commanded to bow. Everyone. Except Mordecai. Mordecai refused.
If he will not bow, he will be destroyed. Not just him. All of his people.
When Haman learned Mordecai was Jewish, his hatred deepened. He manipulated the king. He spoke about a group of people who were different, who followed their own laws. He suggested they were dangerous. Without investigating further, the king permitted Haman to act. A decree was written, sealed with the king's signet ring. It ordered that, on a chosen day, all Jews, young and old, women and children, were to be killed. The news spread quickly. There was weeping, fasting, mourning, and Mordecai sent word to Esther. He told her what was happening, urged her to go before the king, and beg for mercy. But there was a problem. In those days, no one could approach the king without being summoned. If someone entered his presence uninvited, they could be put to death, unless the king extended his golden scepter. Esther had not been called to see the king in 30 days. She was queen, yet she was still at risk. When Mordecai heard her hesitation, he sent back a message that would echo through history.
Do not think that because you are in the palace, you will escape. If you remain silent at this time, deliverance will arise from somewhere else. But you and your family will perish. And who knows if you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?
For such a time as this. Those words changed everything. Maybe her crown was not about comfort. Maybe it was about purpose.
Go. Gather all the Jews. Fast for me. I will fast as well. Then I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish.
After 3 days of fasting, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court. Silence filled the palace. The king looked up, and then he extended his golden scepter. She was spared.
What is it, Queen Esther? Even up to half my kingdom. It will be given to you.
Instead of accusing Haman immediately, Esther invited the king and Haman to a banquet. At the banquet, the king again asked Esther her request. She invited them to a second banquet. Meanwhile, Haman went home full of pride, boasting about his wealth and status. But when he saw Mordecai still refusing to bow, his joy vanished. Encouraged by his wife and friends, Haman built a tall gallows to hang Mordecai. That night, something unexpected happened. The king could not sleep. He ordered the royal records to be read to him. And there it was. The account of how Mordecai had saved his life. The king realized Mordecai had never been rewarded.
Who is in the court?
Ironically, Haman had just arrived, planning to request Mordecai's execution. Before Haman could speak, the king asked him,
What should be done for the man the king delights to honor?
Haman assumed the king meant him. He described a grand parade, royal robes, the king's horse, and public praise.
Excellent. Do this for Mordecai.
Imagine Haman's humiliation. The very man he hated was now honored publicly. Haman had to lead the celebration. The tables were beginning to turn. At the second banquet, The king once again asked Esther for her request. This time, Esther spoke plainly.
If I have found favor with you, spare my life and the life of my people, for we have been sold to be destroyed.
Who would dare do such a thing?
The adversary is this wicked Haman.
The king was enraged. He rose from his seat in wrath and went into the palace garden. Haman, terrified, begged Esther for his life. When the king returned, he saw Haman falling on Esther's couch. In desperation, his anger burned even more. And in a twist of justice, Haman was executed on the very gallows he had built for Mordecai. But the decree to destroy the Jews could not simply be erased. Persian law did not allow that. So the king allowed Esther and Mordecai to issue a new decree, one that gave the Jewish people the right to defend themselves. On the appointed day, instead of being destroyed, the Jews prevailed over their enemies. What was meant for destruction became deliverance. Mordecai was elevated to a high position in the kingdom. Esther remained queen, and the Jewish people established a celebration called Purim, a reminder that even when God seems silent, He is still working behind the scenes. Esther's story reminds us, you do not have to be loud to be powerful. You do not have to be fearless to be brave. And sometimes the position you are in is not random. Maybe you are there for such a time as this. Maybe your voice matters more than you think. Maybe your courage could change someone's future. Esther began as an orphan in exile. She became a queen. But more importantly, she became an instrument of deliverance. And her story still whispers to us today. When the moment comes, when the risk feels overwhelming, when silence feels safer, choose courage. Because you never know who might be saved.